Snow fell thickly over the Colorado mountains, the world reduced to shades of gray and white. 12-year-old Emily trudged along the frozen trail, her tiny boots crunching in the icy snow. Her small hands were raw and red from the cold, and her thin coat did little to protect her from the bitter wind. She hugged herself tightly, whispering a shaky, barely audible prayer to keep going. There was nowhere for her to go. The town she had called home had turned its back on her the moment they discovered her secret. Alone, frightened, and with a heavy burden no child should ever carry, Emily walked. She didn't know how long she had been moving, but every step felt heavier than the last. Her stomach ached, not just from hunger, but from fear, shame, and despair. The wind moaned through the trees, sounding almost like voices warning her to turn back. But Emily had no choice. She had to keep moving, even though every muscle in her body screamed exhaustion. Somewhere, she told herself, there had to be a safe place. Somewhere, there had to be someone who could help her. From the distance, a faint glow caught her eyes, a small cabin perched on the edge of the woods. Smoke curled from the chimney, rising into the cold, gray sky. Emily's heart leapt. Could someone live here? Could someone see her and care? She took a tentative step forward, then another, teeth chattering and legs trembling. From the cabin porch, a figure appeared. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a thick beard dusted with snow and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Caleb, a lone mountain man, had been tending his firewood when he saw the small figure stumbling through the snow. Something in his chest tightened, not curiosity, not suspicion, but concern. Emily looked so fragile, so lost. He called out softly, "Hey, are you okay?" His voice was calm, steady, carrying warmth through the cold. Emily froze, unsure whether to trust the stranger, unsure if anyone in this world could still be trusted. But desperation won over fear. She stepped forward, dragging her feet through the snow, tears freezing on her cheeks. Caleb moved slowly toward her, careful not to startle her, his hands open and empty. When he reached her, he offered a thick wool blanket and a gentle smile. "Come inside," he said. "It's warm. You can rest." For the first time in days, maybe weeks, Emily felt the weight on her shoulders ease just a little. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled, filling the small space with warmth and light. Caleb handed her a bowl of hot soup, and she shivered, staring at the food as if it were a miracle. He didn't ask questions, didn't pry. He just let her be, letting her know that for now, she was safe. And that night, as she sat wrapped in the blanket, sipping the soup, Emily dared to believe that someone still cared, and that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. Days turned into weeks, and Emily slowly began to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: safety. Caleb never rushed her or forced her to talk. He understood the fragility of her trust. He would prepare meals and leave them on the table, build fires to keep the cabin warm, and simply be present without demanding anything in return. At first, Emily kept her distance, unsure if she could allow herself to rely on anyone. But the kindness in his eyes, the patience in his voice, and the steady rhythm of his presence made the mountain feel less lonely than it had in years. Caleb taught her little things about survival in the mountains: how to gather firewood, how to cook simple meals over the stove, how to keep warm when the nights were harsh and unforgiving. But beyond these lessons, he taught her something more important: that she mattered. Each day, Emily began to shed a little of the fear that had weighed her down for so long. Her laughter, once stifled by shame and sorrow, began to bubble up when Caleb told stories about the wild animals of the forest or when snowflakes landed on her nose in the morning. As Emily's belly grew, the reality of her pregnancy became harder to hide. Caleb noticed, of course, but never once reacted with judgment or fear. He simply prepared things for her to rest more comfortably, made sure she ate well, and spoke gently about the future. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, casting long orange streaks across the snow, Emily whispered her fears to him: the fear of giving birth alone, the fear of being abandoned again, the fear of the unknown. Caleb listened quietly, then placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone," he said softly. "Not now, not ever, if you don't want to be." When the baby finally arrived, it was a cold winter morning, and the cabin was filled with the soft warmth of firelight and whispered prayers. Caleb held Emily's hand as she labored, never leaving her side. When the child emerged, tiny and wailing, Emily's tears mixed with relief and awe. Caleb looked at the baby and then at Emily, and for the first time, she saw the pride and joy in someone's eyes just for her. In the weeks that followed, they settled into a rhythm. Caleb would hunt and fish, and Emily would care for the baby, learning in the quiet moments that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. In saving her, Caleb rediscovered purpose, a sense of family he had long believed the mountains had denied him. And in trusting him, Emily found strength, hope, and the knowledge that she could survive anything as long as she was not alone. Together, on that snowy, isolated mountain, they built something neither of them expected, a fragile but unshakable home, where love, trust, and courage grew, even in the harshest of winters. If you want, I can also create a full YouTube story script from these two parts in Russian or English, formatted for narration with intros, hooks, and emotional beats, so it's ready for your channel. Do you want me to do that next? Spring slowly crept over the mountains, melting the snow and painting the world with shades of green and gold. Emily watched the changes from the cabin porch, her baby cradled in her arms. The tiny child's soft coos filled the cabin with a warmth that no fire could match. Caleb had been teaching her how to care for the baby, how to feed, change, and soothe the little one, but also how to trust herself as a mother. Every day, Emily grew stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. She began to believe that the mistakes and heartbreaks of her past did not define her future. Caleb, too, had changed. The loneliness that had been his constant companion for years had faded into the background, replaced by purpose and tenderness. He would wake early to hunt or gather supplies, always returning with a smile for Emily and the baby. He never forced her to speak about the town, the people who had abandoned her, or the trauma she carried. Instead, he showed her, through quiet gestures and unwavering presence, that life could still be beautiful, even after heartbreak. One afternoon, as the sun shone through the budding trees, Emily stepped outside to hang laundry, the baby safely tucked in a sling against her chest. Caleb appeared beside her, carrying freshly caught fish for dinner. They exchanged a glance, a small, silent acknowledgement of everything they had endured together. There was comfort in their shared silence, in the understanding that words were often unnecessary when trust and love had taken root. Yet, even in the serenity of the mountains, challenges remained. Food was sometimes scarce, weather unpredictable, and the isolation meant they had to rely entirely on each other. But each challenge they faced only strengthened their bond. Emily learned to walk confidently through the woods, to chop wood, and to anticipate the rhythms of life in the mountains. She discovered that resilience was not something you were born with, but something you built, day by day, with patience and care. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the peaks, painting the sky in fiery reds and purples, Emily sat on the porch with her baby asleep beside her. Caleb joined her, a blanket over both their shoulders. They watched the mountains in silence, and Emily felt a profound sense of gratitude. She thought of the fear, despair, and loneliness that had once consumed her, and marveled at the life they had built together. In the quiet, she realized that Caleb had not just saved her life, he had given her hope, stability, and a sense of belonging she had never known. In turn, Emily's presence had transformed Caleb's life. His solitary existence, once defined by distance and detachment, had been replaced by connection and care. He had discovered that true strength lay not in isolation, but in opening one's heart, in embracing vulnerability, and in standing steadfastly for those who needed protection. Together, they had found a family in the most unlikely of places, a family forged not by blood, but by compassion, courage, and unwavering trust. If you want, I can continue and write part 4 and part 5 in the same style, completing the full 5-part story arc for your USA-based YouTube story. Do you want me to do that next?